Toshiki is going to be our first speaker. I'd like all the speakers to introduce yourselves. And I think it would be best if we hold questions to the end because they're all going to be up here anyway, and we'll do it that way.
Which one?
Keep trying. It's one of them up there. Try 8.
Try it.
Yeah. Anyone else up here, Leviel?
Yeah.
Actually function.
And 7.
There you go. There it is.
Okay. Yep. Good afternoon. My name is Toshiki Ueda from JPX, Japan Internet Exchange. Actually, this is my first participation in this NANOG meeting. Over there in Tokyo, I have periodically hold a users meeting called JPX Tier 1 meeting. Every 2 or 3 months, I have that meeting, and about 100 engineers recently. Our customer base is increasing constantly, so about 100 people are usually getting together at my meeting. But I didn't expect the audience here is such big. Maybe 1,000? 500. Yeah. Okay. So this is my name is Ueda, and the presentation slide shows Mr. Yoshikazu Ikeda. He's my boss. He's the CEO of JPIX. We are founded about 2 years and a half ago at KDD Automatch Building. Probably, if you are interested in developing some, IP businesses in Tokyo or Japan, this is the, the main building. So you should know this building, KDD Automatch. Actually, there is no major ISPs which do not have any facility at all, in this building. So everybody has some sort of existence in this building. But KDD is a, facility-based carrier, so they have, of course, the internet business. So in principle, they do not want other people to do some businesses in that building. Anyway, KDD Automatch Building is the most centralized building in Japan. And we are currently 16 shareholders. New one is the AbabNet. AbabNet has just joined us as a shareholder, as a 16th shareholder. And the major shareholders are KDD, NEC, Fujitsu, Gens, Sony, Tokyo Internet, and Cisco. Those are the Japan's major ISPs. So those ISPs are supporting us, JPX. And our technology is kind of conventional for you, FIDI, Giga Switch. And we are going to expand this capability very soon because of the shortage of the, providing facilities. Currently, we have 39 different customers. I expect about that will become 50 in the end of this year. This is the all the customers we have right now and expecting customers. I have grouped into several, categories. Type 1 and manufacturers and US providers like you, and cable operators and content providers and others. At first, the Type 1 carrier are starting to connect with us. But just recently, we have so many US customers, starting with Tokyo Internet, which was purchased by PSINet 1 year and half ago, and AT&T GNS, formerly IBM, and PSI UUNet, Above, Global One, Onyx, and AOL, and Global Crossing, Exodus, Level 3, and Microsoft will be connecting with us very soon. Actually, last Friday, I got a contact with Microsoft in Seattle. So we are currently quite expanding. This shows our traffic growth. This is 5 minutes average. This 300 megabps is January last year, and this year we recorded 780. And I expect in 1 year it will become 1.4 gigabps. So the traffic is growing constantly. Probably if we reach 1.4, probably we may also encounter some sort of the packet loss or such kind of trouble. So before to encounter such troubles, we have to shift our technology to Ethernet. This is our traffic 24-hour traffic pattern. As you may know, in Japan, still telephone rate is quite expensive. But NTT has the kind of flat rate discount plan, which is called Telehodai, that start at 11 o'clock at night, ends at 8 o'clock in the morning. So when you use the connect dial-up during that period, 9 hours, you can use the internet freely. So that time is a kind of we have a peak. And another peak is the lunchtime surfing time. Okay. So those are the Japan's. This is the Japan's traffic pattern. There are two graphics. One is last year's and one is this year. And last year the peak was about 300 megabps, but this year it's 800. And 8 o'clock is here 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So if you remotely access the Japan's internet, your maintenance window is kind of, I'd say, easy to. You don't need to work, late at night. You can work, daytime to access Japan. And this year we are going to start to adopt Ethernet technologies and to provide gigabit Ethernet and fast Ethernet. Just like, as you, conceive, we have Giga Switch, and we are going to install the SSR, Smart Switch Router. This is a new configuration of our system. Currently, we have just Giga Switch, but within, hopefully, 1 month, we'd like to install the SSR to provide gigabit Ether and fast Ether. In addition to that, we would like to expand our site to other locations of Tokyo. That could be NF Park building. You should know it. Those 2 points are quite important for your strategic, strategy in Tokyo if you come to Tokyo. And Telecom Center, that is seaside. That is located seaside. And GAL, Global Access Limited Telecom House, and Mitsubishi Daiwa building. Those 2 are the possible locations. We haven't fixed our next or third locations, but those 4 are the possible locations. So, thanks so much. When you come to Tokyo, please contact me. I'd like to take you to our facilities. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Ronaldo. I work for Nortel, and I also work for the Brazilian Internet Steering Group, which is like a merge of NANOG and IETF in the sense that we have some meetings, just like this one over here in Brazil, and we produce also some operational specs. I mean, we do not produce protocols. We produce operational specs like administering exchange points and planning multicast backbone in Brazil, etc. So, and Frederico Neves, which works with me, and he couldn't be here, but his name is here. So I'll present the status of the Brazilian Internet exchange point. I mean, we have just one. So there'll be a very small introduction, the actual participants, the participants that are connecting now, some traffic statistics, the architecture of our exchange point, which is very simple, and future plans. Well, it's my very small introduction is that this is a public exchange point supported by the Brazilian government, and it has some employees of the São Paulo Research Committee, and they are full-time dedicated to administering the exchange point. And we have this exchange point for about like 2 years, but only I'd say in the last 6 months there were really interest of the operators and the ISPs to connect to the internet exchange point because there were the regulation in Brazil, and now we have several competing telecoms. From like 1 year ago or 1 year and a half, we have just one, which was Embratel, which was bought by MCI WorldCom in the regulation process. So the actual participants today at the exchange point are the ANSP, which is the academic network at São Paulo. The National Research Network. The National Research Network is a project sponsored by the Brazilian government, the National Science Foundation, to implement a national academic network in Brazil. I worked for the National Research Network for a while. AT&T Latin America, Unisys, and Global One, Dial Data, which is ISP in Brazil, KDD, UOL. UOL is the biggest ISP in Latin America. They have 170 million hits a day in their portal. It's pretty well known. Embratel, which is MCI WorldCom now, they connect to the exchange point indirectly. As I heard here today, they are very concerned that if they connect directly in the switch of the exchange point, they will be providing free internet access. So they peer with the with the router of the National Research Network at E3, and the router of the National Research Network goes to the switch in the exchange point. So in process of connecting, we have Telemar, which is a group of, which is a new telecom Brazil that came with the deregulation, Telecentro Sul, which is Italy Telecom, Telefónica Spain, there's also connection to the exchange point, ZAS, which is a very common ISP in Brazil. They are of the group of Terra, which is also now a web portal here in Brazil, in the United States, and the AT&T Global Network, which was IBM. Okay, the architecture is very simple now, because telecom lease lines in Brazil are still very expensive. I mean, the prices are going down, but they're still very, very expensive compared to the USA. We have 10-100 switch, several routers connected to the switch, and we have two Pentiums 400 that runs FreeBSD 3.4 and the route server daemon. All the routers on the exchange point pairs with the two RSDs for redundancy. One of them actually distribute the routes, the other distribute the routes and also do a lot of logging so we can get some statistics. There is this traffic statistics, it's not that much. We have like a peak of 27 megs going in and out on the switch. This is the weekly traffic and going through the switch of the exchange point. Most of the ISPs in Brazil, they have to pay like, depending on where they are, they have to pay like $2,000 for a E1 line or more. So it's very expensive. So we have set the minimum connecting speed to the ISP at a E1 with the 2 meg, which for some ISPs that it's too much. There is some ISPs which are connected like at 8 meg, which is mostly Global One and AT&T. In the future plans, we will collect some statistics on stability and number of ASs and prefixes. I mean, our future plans are not so, are more connected to the software and statistics than to upgrading the equipment. The equipment it's enough for now. So we plan to get some statistics on stability and the number of ASs and prefixes. And now, usually in the more elaborate traffic statistics per protocol like TCP, UDP, DNS, etc. We have, you're going to install BGMP routers there. I mean, basically based on FreeBSD when the code is ready. And we have like a MBON, a multicast MBON in Brazil. In our meetings in the Brazilian Internet Engineering Group, we also broadcast our meetings, and like we see at IETF meetings, etc. Well, we also in the process of putting a routing hub registry there, and DNS root server. I mean, it's not a DNS root server. It's like a Anycast shared DNS root server, because we don't have any root server in South America. Although we have a lot of traffic, we don't have any DNS root server. A transparent cache, and it's not here, but the Brazilian Internet Steering Group is planning to hold a IETF meeting in Brazil in 2001 in Rio de Janeiro. So it's not directly related to the exchange point, but it's also a project that we're working with. And I plan to, in a future NANOG presentation, to present some of this data that are planned to get. So so that's it, real quick.
Thanks, Howard. Hi, my name's Lance Tapman. I'm representing the NASA Ames Internet Exchange. Um, These slides are not yet at this address. As I presented at the last NANOG, the Ames Internet Exchange consists of 4 different exchange points. There's the legacy Federal Internet Exchange, the Next Generation Internet Exchange, which supports research and the NGI project, and a multicast Internet Exchange. That is a beta exchange point for distribution of native multicast, and the May West Ames. And I'll be focusing on the May West Ames here today. That should be what interests most of you, and it's been giving me the most problems. This is the current architecture of the May West at Ames. Around Thanksgiving, actually the day before Thanksgiving last year, I installed the Cabletron SSR 8600 as the core switch, and used fast Ethernet trunks to move the DEC Giga switches out to the edge and begin a migration away from FDDI. That worked. However, the problems we're running into right now are with the OC3 connections to MCI WorldCom. There are currently 5 of those connections, and as we've added OC3 connections, upgraded firmware, increased traffic load, we've seen an increase in failures with those OC3 circuits. And what happens is just at least once, sometimes twice a day or more, 1 or more of those OC3 circuits just stops transmitting. And the only way to reset it and bring it back up is to reset the card on the switch. I have not been able to resolve this with DEC. In a moment, I'll show you the slide that will show you the solution that we've come up with. Right now, the Cabletron boxes will support fast Ethernet and gigabit Ethernet, and we're testing PAWS, OC3, and OC12. The proposed configuration, which can be in place within 2 or 3 weeks. I've got all the hardware to put an OC12 at Ames to MCI WorldCom. I've got the hardware for the MCI side and the Ames side. The circuit is ordered. Steve is working on getting that put in for me. The PAWS cards I've been testing in the lab for a couple weeks, and the most interesting thing was the throughput. Now with the DEC Giga switch and 5 OC3s, I get a throughput maximum of about 465 megabits per second. Now beta testing the PAWS cards, the first test we ran, we got 700 megabits on an OC12 card. Pretty amazing. So something's not right. And as packet size increased, throughput decreased. So it never did decrease below 622 though. At the last NANOG I mentioned, and Paul had mentioned, we would be locating switches at each other's exchange points, and that's still going to happen. We've had trouble at the Ames side getting the last mile of fiber in. The fiber is in the last manhole before the building. It just needs to be pulled into the building now. Contracts are ready to be signed, and I'm not going to put a date on it, but I'm thinking maybe within a month to 2 months we should have it in and be able to begin selling services. Also, if you notice in this, I get to eliminate 1 giga switch here within a couple weeks. Currently, the services we support are the legacy FDDI, fast Ethernet, and various versions of Ethernet. And we're trying to focus more now on gathering statistics and reporting for customers, as well as offering different interfaces. We are working on some statistics. They are not all perfect. If you look at the top web page here, that's our own page where we're generating stats. The next web page is generated by CADA. Thanks to Kim and Tracy Monk for that. They're working hard to be able to collect statistics on the OC12 PAWS, and hopefully they will, so we can keep getting all the great stats. You should look at that page. It's great. As far as reporting, what we would like to be able to do with the new switches, and working with the Cabletron engineers to get the software done, is to be able to provide each customer a report for each of their peers that shows for every day of each month the amount of traffic that has passed between those piers. Also, at the end of the month, you would get a summary that shows each pier and how many bytes came in and how many went out. That should help. I think Steve had mentioned somebody pointing to fault to you and just ruining things. You ought to be able to see who's doing that if you're not even peering with them. We're trying to do research at the operational exchange without affecting traffic. So some of the things we're looking at testing are the pause cards with customers. As I said, we've done tests between SSRs. We have just got a commitment from one ISP to test pause to his router. And anybody else that's there that wants to play will keep your BIDI interface or fast Ethernet interface connected but not up. Is that going away?
Is that your laptop or is that?
You know, it did it last time. I think it's mine. It's got a time limit. Anyway, if you want to do testing, we'd keep your interface connected. You can just turn it down. We'll connect up whatever technology you're beta testing and then if you run into problems with that technology, you can turn that off and go to back to the operational interface you have. The traffic reporting, as I said, Mike McFadden from Cabletron's been helping us write some collection software. It's in place. We're looking at the bugs now, trying to get that refined. Port-to-port bandwidth limiting and MAC filtering. Again, if you've got someone pointing to fault at you, we can do MAC filters right now. And we're trying to make it so that the customer can actually log in and change the configuration on their port without us having to be there or intervening. The port-to-port bandwidth limiting, I'm told it works. The testing in the lab shows that it does. If anybody wants to try this, you know, you can do some of the same things Steve was talking about with MPLS, and we'll try out the port-to-port limiting. ATM OC3 interfaces, I had one. It works, but not at layer 2. They're still working on the software to support that. And that's it.
Thank you, Lynn.
Okay. Hello, my name is Andy Schmidt, and I am an SBC employee from Ameritech who has product responsibility for Pacific Bell stuff. So. And I'm going to cover the Ameritech Exchange, which is the one I've been familiar with, been working on for years, and recently I picked up Pacific's Exchange as well, product responsibility for that. And again, I'm going to try to do this as quickly as possible to cut right to the chase in this thing. The Ameritech Exchange in Chicago, it's ATM based. It's always been ATM based. We support 3 port speeds, DS3, OC3, and OC12. I think coincidentally, there's nowhere to go, as Steve referred to in the previous talk. There's nowhere to go next. Of course, we can do 48s, but there is no OC48 ATM interface. So the MPLS stuff is a definite direction for us as well. Either that or FRF.8 frame relay, the ATM service internetworking. But all that aside, all the customers get a full mesh of PVCs. So we try to make this thing as transparent as possible. No ingress policing, so it's UBR. You know, again, we're trying to be transparent. And I've got to put this last bullet up for Bill every time, and that there's little to no congestion loss at the Chicago Exchange. I mean, around the periphery, of course, there's going to be, but ISPs have been real good about upgrading their ports to a higher capacity. So on our egress buffers, we don't see very much congestion loss at all. There you go, Bill. So now you've got a question you can ask me afterwards about where is the congestion in the internet. Snapshot of where we are today, there are 104 connections, which is pretty good, pretty high, peaks of 2.4. I'll get that. I think we kind of reached, I'm looking forward to a point where we can say that we're the largest exchange in the world, but we're kind of to the point now where we can say, well, we're definitely the largest ATM exchange, but we're the largest exchange depending on what day of the week, because we kind of go back and forth between May East. For a while, we were running about 200 to 300 megabit per second higher than their peaks, but I think they're higher now, so we go back and forth. But still, that's quite a bit of traffic. About 60% of the connections are OC3. A lot of them are going to OC12s. In particular, the major ISPs are moving up to OC12. So that's an interesting thing. And this last bullet, it's a tangential issue, but there are some huge, and I should say huge, co-location facilities being built in Chicago, like 15-story buildings with 100,000 square feet per floor. One of the examples is an old printing press building. That it's enormous, and these things are being turned into co-location. And they call me, of course, because they want to get NAP connectivity extended to these facilities. But it's a really interesting thing to say, you've got 3 million square feet of colo space being built in your city. Chicago's a hub in every way. All right, rolling right along. This is like in the last 60 days where we've been, some changes and some that are about to happen. If you're on there and you shouldn't be, I'm sorry. If you're on there and you should, if you're not and you should be, I'm sorry also. I think it's pretty accurate. We have a big bubble coming through. Year 2K was an event. So we locked down in a big way and nothing happened. I think really nothing happened in November towards December for sure. So we've got a big bubble of connections that are going to come through now that things are rolling again. This is also kind of interesting that it shows a little bit of the different kinds of connectivity we support. Of course, there's a large number of ISPs, and several of them are putting in OC12, but then we've got a lot of international connectivity. In particular, Europeans are been very active in the last 60 to 90 days on getting connectivity in, and a couple of corporate customers, Motorola, Comdisco, are putting their own connections right into the NAP. This is what the NAP looks like. It's pretty straightforward. We're up to 4 switches now. Most of the work is going on in the 550s at the bottom, trunked together with OC48. We maintain these 500s at the top to do the DS3 connectivity, but DS3s are kind of going away these days, and most of the work is going to be in the core 550s. I've got pictures on the website. I pulled one off and stuck it in this talk. But if you go down to the switch site, you'll be decidedly underimpressed by 3 or 4 ATM switches in the cabinet that are the largest exchange in the world, depending on the day you're looking at them. Okay, that was it for Chicago. I think I did a good job of being right to the point. There's my contact information. Kevin Peterson is the real hands-on guy. See, there's Kevin in the back. Kevin, you can raise your hand. This is a wonderful opportunity to actually put a face on the name. Our website has contact information and some more pretty pictures of the exchange. Now, as far as Pacific, I just wanted to give a quick snapshot of the Pac Bell exchange. 70 customers on 62 ports. I'm sorry, I needed to update that. It's 70 customers. The total number of ports is quite a bit higher. That's a typo. That'd be a real trick. That's better than like 700 mega, and we're doing 700 meg on the OC12s. 700 gig. All right. And about 1.4 gig. So, it's an interesting exchange. I think actually I'm running the 2 largest ATM exchange points in the world, so I don't know if I should be proud or ashamed, but I like to think of this one as mini-me. Okay. There's some Pac Bell contact information. I'll put that up on the web. and I get this stuff back later tonight. That's it for me. Thanks.
We wait. It's me again. I do not work at ISC at my day job. I work for Metro Media Fiber Network because they bought my company recently, which was MIBH. They also own PAX and AboveNet. Perhaps your turn will come. So, originally PAX was owned by Digital, then Compaq, then AboveNet. Then AboveNet was swallowed by the larger fish, and PAX became a sister company, and then MIBH was added to the mix. Those of you who know Steve Stewart, he's on the program committee. He's also part of this empire. PAX has two locations that are either operating or very close to operating. In Palo Alto, we opened a ground floor expansion space since the original exchange was in the basement, and that is mostly full. We have signed a lease for a second facility elsewhere in town, with lots of dark fiber between them, and that will be open later in the year. Over at Tyson's Corner, about maybe a half mile from 8100 Boone, in a SAIC building in the SAIC campus down there, there is a facility which we call VA1, and there will be lots of dark fiber there as well. So most of the Sonnet carriers that are planning on coming in are planning on just hitching a ride on MFN, as they do in a lot of other towns. So there won't be quite so many people trenching to this building as have trenched to the Palo Alto building. And that one is almost ready to go. There are people doing installs now, but we're not officially opening until sometime in March. MFN has fiber hotels all over the place, mostly domestic, but also literally all over the place. PAX, being a wholly owned subsidiary, can build an exchange in any one of those, or all of them. All it needs is a successful story to tell. And as to which ones we're opening in next, I would be fired if I said, so I won't. But customers will pretty much tell us what to do in that regard. And if you are interested, the sales force is reachable through the webpage. Laura would love to hear from anyone. If you have something to say of the form, if you build it, I will come. So currently we have many flavors of Ethernet. We have some legacy FIDI. We're not adding any more FIDI connections. The FIDI that we have is an albatross around our neck. We'd like to be rid of it soon. Those of you who are customers know how much pressure I'm putting on customers to get rid of your FIDI. We're looking into some other switching technologies, but in the shorter term than that, we simply have to get higher density gigabit Ethernet than we have now. There are, I think, 4 customers attached at gigabit speed, and indications are that another 40 would like to do that, and the current switches are not dense enough. So we will be changing the kind of switch that we use probably before we change the kind of protocol that we use. I personally think that MPLS or 10 gig E are going to be the next big winner in this space. And as far as remote peering, you saw on Lance's slides that we are planning on putting some gig E between the Ames exchange point and PAX. This will not be bridged as the May West and May West Ames are done. These will be two different fabrics, simply for the purpose of rack space customers at PAX being able to buy ports from Lance, rack space customers at Ames being able to buy ports from me. So anyone who wants to be peering with people in both exchanges will still have to buy a port from two different providers, if you will. And that will keep us from having to answer the question, gee, are you on my side or the other side of that particular trunk link? Enough said about that. That's it.
Thanks, Paul.
Well, my dad told me I should always open a talk with a joke. It's an old one, you may have heard this one before, but the electron says to the molecule, the atom says to the molecule, I've lost an electron. The molecule says, are you sure? The atom says, I'm positive. Anyway, I will keep this brief. In terms of the Equinix exchanges, we've actually made a lot of progress since the last time I spoke about Equinix, which I think was the original launch back in October of '98 when we first passed out those IP Clueful t-shirts. Since then, we have 3 IBXs up in operation. In terms of the interconnection media, there are really 3 forms of interconnection that the IBXs support. First, for the very high traffic interconnections for the point-to-point, folks are using dark fiber, and you can drive that at whatever speed, it's the same cost. OC3 up to OC192, it doesn't matter. For multi-point, we have an ATM 4ASX 4000 switch that supports OC48C, 12C, and 3C. And we're also doing a fair amount of investigation into, much like Steve Feldman was talking about, MPLS architectures, as well as optical and lambda switching for interconnection. What I really want to talk about, though, is something that we haven't really talked about when we've done these exchange point updates in the past, which is some of the research that we're focusing on. Diarmid Flynn, I don't know if he's in the room, Diarmid's been working on RSD and getting some of the some of the RPSL tools into the RSD code and feeding it back into the GateD consortium. And we're looking to work with Sue Harris on getting MPLS into BGP and get that deployed and tested and so forth. We have NTP and a Stratum 1 clock source at each of the IBX exchanges. And something that's also somewhat similar to what the Mays have done, but going a step above, is this thing we call the Equinix Customer Care System, also known as Market Maker. And when you take a look at the participants and exchange points, you see a layer of carriers, a layer of ISPs, but we also see a whole realm of activity going on top of that. And the IBX model has always supported the notion of having both ISP carriers as well as some higher level services, the co-location of content with the ISPs. So this thing called Market Maker is really intended to make it as easy as possible for all application service providers, for all content hosters and so forth to do business with each other and do it all electronically. So if you need to pull DSL access from Northpoint, transit services from Unet and so forth, you can do so electronically and have it up and running as quickly as possible without having to make any phone calls. The other piece I'd like to talk a little bit about is actually Ted Hardy's pet research project. You see at the very bottom of the screen the URL, or actually not the URL, but the IATF specification for the draft. I'll just mention in brief. It's a way of getting a single service deployed across many exchange points. So you graphically separate this thing across many exchange points around the world, yet it appears to be one huge single service. One application of this is could be root servers. So for example, where did I put that thing? The pointer. Oh, here it is. So what you see over here on the left-hand side are the exchanges, where the demarcation point across a switch. And over on this backside, across these 4 exchanges in this particular case, all the necessary infrastructure to sync up the root servers in this particular implementation, so that you have a demarcation point. These could be in Asia-Pacific region, United States, Europe, and South Africa. And as long as the background administrative network keeps these things all in sync, then to the outside world, it all appears like a single IP address across a BGP session. In any case, this is something that we're putting in place, and Ted Hardy, unfortunately, he couldn't be here, but if you're interested in this, I encourage you to read the draft and contact Ted. The other piece is we've grown to a great number of participants. A number of folks within the next 30 or 60 days, some fairly big Tier 1 companies will be coming in the next 30 or 60 days, and you'll be seeing some press announcements about these guys coming in. And then the last thing, in terms of growth projections and plans, right now we've got the Ashburn, Virginia site up, the Newark, New Jersey site up, and the San Jose site is coming up in a matter of days. We're getting the certificate of occupancy, I think it's like Wednesday or Thursday. If any of you folks are interested in tours, please get me a card, or you can also send an email to sales@equinix.com, and I'd be glad to set you up. Thanks.
Hi, I'm Keith Mitchell from London Internet Exchange, otherwise known as Links. It's been a year since I last spoke to a NANOG meeting. Quite a lot's happened in that past year, and it's been rather difficult to fit it into less than a dozen slides in half as many minutes. One notable thing that happened this week, we had our 5th anniversary. Link's been around for just over 5 years now, as of November. Rather than give you a big long list of members, I thought it was quite interesting to break it down by country. You can see that actually less than half of our members are UK based. We have a lot of US multinational based members, a lot of German members. In terms of recent additions, well, there's one UK member you've probably heard of. Quite a lot of German, pan-European players there, also our first Finnish and Japanese members. We've been running with Gigabit Ethernet for over a year now. Initially, we deployed it as the InterSwitch backbone. Shortly after that, we ran it over dark fiber as a metropolitan area network between our first and second sites. We made it available to members within the past quarter. What did it do that for? Hang on. Sorry about that. We made the gigabit service available to members very recently. It's been taken up by about 8 members so far, and that's really just in time. We're seeing quite a few members who were in danger of filling their 100 meg ports. One of the biggest issues there was not actually switches. The biggest obstacle was availability of router interfaces. That seems to be more or less sorted out now. But it was getting quite scary. It was 2 or 3 months closer to limit of capacity on 100 meg ports than I would have liked. The current architecture, we're running a dual architecture, 2 different types of switches from 2 different vendors. All members get to connect to 1 of each type of switch. It's mostly packet engine switches, which are now Alcatel. 2 of the large Parallel 5200s, one of the smaller ones to support legacy FDDI. We have some smaller non-modular switches for remote locations. Past couple of weeks we've installed an Extreme Black Diamond. That's the same architecture as the Summit 48, but a modular based one. We've also been doing some work with a multicast exchange as well, and we're using one of the smaller packet engine switches to pilot that. Here's approximately what the topology looks like. At each site we have one of the Parallel 5200s. Black Diamond Telehouse is still the main site. Probably about a dozen of our members are at the Telecity site, which is about 3-4 miles west of Telehouse. Most of the members are at Telehouse and connect within the building. and there's a mixture of the black diamond and the parallel switches there. Here's the stats. I've shown the year trend here, which doesn't really reflect the daily peak very well, but the daily peak is about 1.7 gigabits at the moment. All the aggregate stats are in the public domain. They're available at that URL at the top there. A lot of our work has been focused on rolling out to other sites. There's been a major growth in co-location providers within the Docklands and London City area. So Telehouse and Telecity, their facilities are more or less full, but they're extending to additional buildings. So we've come up with a scheme that will allow us to roll out the exchange to multiple sites. The idea is that we'll connect these all together using the same technology, dark fiber with gigabit Ethernet over it. We'd like to overlay that with WDM technology in the very near future. In terms of additional sites, in the very near future, the Redbus Interhouse Harbour Exchange facility will be our third site. We'll be moving into Telehouse's new adjacent extension building. We're in discussions with 3 other colo providers, which we should have up and running by the end of the first quarter. On non-infrastructure stuff, I think the one of the things I think might be interested to audience here is that it's very easy for people to complain about, well, it's okay, you've got an exchange point, but how do I arrange peering? How do I talk to all these other different members? The big guys won't exchange traffic with me, etc., etc. We've done what we think is a bit of work to perhaps not solve the problem, but at least reduce the threshold of the problems. One piece of work that we did was to come up with a template peering agreement. This is not something that's mandatory or even recommended. It's basically boilerplate that you can use to construct your own peering agreement that's already been through other ISPs' lawyers and has already been executed by other pairs of ISPs. And it's a sample, and it's also transparent as well, so that the regulator can't accuse the industry of having secret agreements. So that template is in the public domain. Feedback extremely welcome. We want to try and evolve that into something that is widely recognized. We've also, to try and preempt any interest in this topic by regulators, which I think the FCC's name came up earlier on today, and Oftel occasionally make noises about this in the UK, is the idea of a dispute resolution procedure, so that if 2 ISPs can't agree to peer or can't agree terms on which they might be peering, then we can potentially act as a neutral third party to facilitate that, or at least to help with the differences. But we're also being very careful. This is very much a toe in the water. It's very much a voluntary, non-binding scheme that's there to ease problems, but not necessarily as an alternative to litigation. What else have we been doing? For, I don't know, 6 to 9 months now, we've been running a couple of route servers, Solaris-based RSD and a Solaris-based platform. We did them because lots of other exchanges had them. We're finding actually there's very little interest in using these, and we're reviewing whether we want to continue with these or whether we want to change the basis in which they offer. But they're there, and they've recently been upgraded to RPSL capability, run off the right database, and as I say, it's a case of customer interest. I mentioned earlier we're doing multicast exchange work. We've got a number of students working this as a research project at the moment. We have about 10 participants. We should be able to turn that into an actual service within the next month or so. You may be aware that we already run k.routeservice.net and also the primary for the UK zone in conjunction with the RIPE NCC and Nominet. We've also submitted a bid to NSI to host one of the GTLD servers as part of the competitive process. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there. We also managed to go out and get sponsorship to buy some atomic clocks by Stratum 1 NTP. 3 of these, 2 at Telehouse, 1 at another location. There's been a lot of silly things said about this whole topic by politicians and others, but I thought it was just quite good fun to put the atomic clocks on the meridian line. The actual 0-degree meridian line goes through our facility. And you can see the Millennium Dome boondoggle out the window from where the clocks are. So, and that's it. Thanks.
Thanks, Keith. Before we take questions, I just want to say we have a treat afterwards, so stay put. Thanks, Sean, for following. Oh, you're going to ask a question, right? Ah. You guys, just stand up, come up. Cheers.
My name's Sean Dowland. This is probably a question for Keith. The Lynx hosted a conference call for all its participants over the January Y2K party. I was wondering how well that was received and whether or not the participants might look towards the exchange hosting other inter-customer communications in the future.
Well, like the whole Y2K thing, it's a bit of a non-event, really. The most exciting thing that happened was a little bit of hacker activity that we saw. Really, I think it was useful to conduct the exercise. It was useful to conduct a whole load of the Y2K preparation. We did quite a lot of work there. And I think it was useful about teaching us how to handle major events and also due diligence and all the rest of it. Frankly, I'd much rather been partying with my friends and family than participating in the teleconference, but that's not a reflection on the good people who participated in the teleconference. Certainly, you know, we're here to facilitate coordination in the industry. That's what we're here to do. And if anyone thinks that there are appropriate events or opportunities in the near future, I'm very happy to do that. And thank you everyone who did participate.
Others? Okay, the treat is coming after just Avi? Oh.
Regarding the links between, well, not the links, the link between the Ames Exchange and PAX, will that be, how is the management of that done? Will it only be 100 meg ports sold and it will not be oversubscribed, or is that just going to be, I'm just wondering how the management of that will be done.
You want to go first?
The management of the individual links will be handled by each entity. So I'll worry about the link for the May West, and Paul will worry about his. And since it is dark fiber, no, we do not plan on oversubscribing the links.
Okay.
The important thing to remember here is that there will be two links. I'm remoting a switch in Lance's facility, bridged onto my switches. He's remoting a switch in my facility, bridged onto his. It is certainly PAX's policy, being owned by a dark fiber carrier, that there shall be no congestion. When we do this with Steve's facility, we'll try very much to keep the same policy, although Steve's facility is harder to get into since it's owned by the commercial sector rather than the military.
Steve Feldman. Two questions. First one is for Lance. There was something a couple weeks ago about problems with fragmentation between the GigaSwitch and the SSR. What came of that, if anything?
I believe the problem you're referring to was, I think, Paul, you might have found this. If you have two customers that are talking FIDI to FIDI on the same GigaSwitch that has the fast Ethernet cards in it, I was told, I haven't verified this, that it could, or has in the past, it will not allow a MTU of greater than 1500. It basically starts dropping packets, doesn't do the fragmentation. What became of it, I haven't verified it yet. I'm going to encourage the route servers to move to fast Ethernet along with everybody else.
Okay.
My second question is for Bill Norton, and that is, are you really starting to reuse your jugs?
Hi, Jeff Haas. I read their outservers right now. To clarify the problem that we saw, if the don't fragment bit is set, the packet does get dropped. But the don't fragment bit is clear, the switch will do the right thing and fragment the packet, but it, of course, breaks path MTU discovery, and that's been the solution on the route servers themselves to shut that off.
When are you going to move to fast Ethernet?
When can you get me there?
Next week.
We'll talk.
Jeff's from Merritt, I thought I'd just point that out. Okay, no more questions. We will